All right, so we are going to continue working on this back side, and I think once we get to number 3 with these ones, I think you guys are going to really kind of understand this a little bit better with how we're separating everything out and how we're getting all of these answers. We're going to go ahead and do letter E real quick here, and what I'm actually going to notice here is I'm actually going to kind of multiply first of all this. So I've got 3 10s. I've got 10 times 10 times 10. And I know that if I've got 10 times 10, that's 100 times 10 more is going to give me 1,000. So I'm actually going to rewrite this as 57 times 2 times 1,000. And it's going to equal 570 times 2 times 10. Okay. So if I were to work this problem out, there's a couple different things I could do. I could pull this 10 away from this 57 and move it over here, which is what we're going to talk about down here, but I'm not going to do that just for right now. So on here, what I can do is I know that this is going to be 57 tens. Okay, so if I'm going to do, first of all, before I do this, I'm going to actually check to see what is 57 times 2. 57 times 2 is 114. So I've got 114 times 1,000, but then over here, I have 114 tens times 10. Okay, so what is 10 times 10? Well, 10 times 10 is going to be 100. So it's going to tell me that I've got 114 hundreds. Okay, but if I were to look at this, sorry guys, that goes to that one. This is telling me I've got 114 times 1,000. So I have 114,000 is equal to 114 hundreds. That one is going to be false. Okay, because if you think about it, I've got 114,000, 114 hundreds. So 114, I'm going to come over here since I'm running out of space. 114,000 is not equal to 11400, because remember, here's my thousands with my 3 place values here. Here's my 100 with my 2 zeros here. They are not equal, so that is where it's false. Okay, moving on to number 3, letter A. What we're going to do is we're basically going to build upon and continue coming up with some answers. And what we're going to do is we are going to be using some of this we're going to be using a distributive property. We might use the commutative property. So there's a lot of different things, properties that we're going to use to kind of separate this out. The one thing that is going to be nice is they're going to use that same number for each of those problems. So once I've figured out what the base number is going to be, I'm going to be able to continue using it. Okay. So here it told me that letter A, 7 times 9 is 63. Okay. So that one is finished. I'm going to come over here, and now I've got 7 times 90. So what they did, and they kind of skipped a step here, is that they took this 90 and separated it out and did 9 times 10. So now I could have done 7 times 9, which gives me that 63, and I'm multiplying it by 10. And when I multiply 63 times 10, I get 630. Over here, they did the same thing, and this is where they actually did write it out, where they skipped this step over here, was they decided to say, well, I've got 7 times 10, and then I've got 9 times 10. Okay, so they just basically separated that out. They made it so that I had a 1, and then I had my 10. So then what they took was they took the 7 times 9, and then they said, well, what is 10 times 10? Well, 10 times 10 is 100. So then I knew that 7 times 9 is 63. So here's my 63 times 100 is 6,300, or it ends up being 6,300. Think about this, guys. How many zeros are here? How many zeros are here? Okay. So then over here, they did the same thing, but instead of separating this out, the 7 times 10 and then the 9 times 100, they just said, okay, well, I've got 7 times 9. So here's that 7 times 9. And I knew that this number was a 10 and this number was 100. So that's how I got that 10 times 100. So right now, if I multiplied this out, 7 times 9, of course, is that 63. And if I take 10 times 100, that's giving me 1,000. Oh, 1, 2, 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I know that I've got 63,000, 63, 1, 2, 3 zeros, 63,000. Okay, as we write one of these out, it might make a little bit more sense. And what I might do is I might go ahead and write more steps out. If there are some steps that you can figure out and that you can skip, you can go ahead and skip them to write this, but you really need to be able to see your idea and show your thinking when we are doing this. So I'm going to do 45 times 3. So I don't have any tens, hundreds, thousands, anything like that. So I just need to go ahead and multiply it out. So 45 times 3, 5 times 3 is 15, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So I know that this equals 135. And because I do not have any tens or anything like that, or hundreds, thousands, anything, I know my answer is 135. Over here, what I have is I have 45 times 30. And so what I could actually do is I could take 45 times 1, because that's what it is, it's 45 ones. And then I can times it by 3 times 10, because all I'm doing is just kind of expanding this out because I have 3 tens. So now I can go ahead and do 45 times 3 times 1 times 10. Well, I already know this answer, it's 135. And then what is 1 times 10? Well, 1 times 10 is 10. So I have 135 tens, or I have 1,350. Okay, so guys, remember, if you were to get out your place value chart, I have 135 tens. I have 135, here's that 10. And take a look at this. I need to add that 0 in that ones column. Well, look at that. I added 1 0. I have 1 0. Okay, so we're going to continue on with this. And I'm going to say, okay, so this is going to be 45, and it's not going to be 45 times 100, guys. Yes, it is 450, but it's 45 tens. So I'm going to take 45 times 10, and I'm actually going to draw some squiggly lines in here so that I'm not mixing things up. And then I'm going to add multiply 3 times 10, because I have 3 tens. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and use my associative property, 45 times 3, kind of move some things around here, 10 times 10. Actually, sorry, it's not the associative property, it's a commutative property because I'm moving some things around. So 45 times 3 is going to give me 135 because I already know that from right over here. And then I'm going to multiply it. Well, what is 10 times 10? Well, 10 times 10 is 100. So I have 135 hundreds, guys. So remember, if I come over here, hundreds, 135 hundreds, and take a look at this. I'm going to add my zeros to fill in my place values. How many zeros did I add? I added 2. How many zeros are here? I have 2. So my answer is 13,500. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, this is going to be 45 times 10, because it does have 1 0, it's 45 tens, okay? I'm going to multiply it by 3 times 100, because it is 300. So now I can go ahead and use my commutative property, 45 times 3 times 10 times 100. Okay, already know the answer. 45 times 3 is 135. And I'm going to multiply it by what's 10 times 100? Well, 10 times 100 is 1,000. And I have 135 times 1,000, 135 thousands, 135 thousands. Okay, I could do the same thing with my place value chart. And if you're a little confused with this, write it in here because the answer is going to be right there. I knew that my answer is 135,000. So 135 thousands. And I need to add those zeros to fill in up into that decimal, because if I don't, then my answer is incorrect. And there I have that 135,000. Okay. All right, moving on to letter C. I've got, 40 times 5. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to separate this out. And I'm going to say this is going to be 4 times 10. And I'm going to multiply it by 5. And that's 5 basically times 1. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move some things around, and I'm going to keep my numbers, anything that's like anything from 2 to 9 is what I want to put into one place, and then anything with that tens, hundreds, thousands, if we ever would get up to millions, which we won't, it's okay, I will want to put that into a different separate parentheses. The reason why I did not say 1 is because I don't want to put 4 times 5 times 1. I could, but I want to keep that 10 and that 1 together. So now I'm going to have 4 times 5 multiplied by 10 times 1. Now, if you're like, well, I want to skip that step because I know 10 times 1 is 10, you could just write 10 times 10 because you already know that. So 4 times 5 is 20, and you guys already know that 10 times 1 is 10. Now, here is where some of you guys will sit there and think, well, I've got 20, so the answer is just 20. Well, it's not, because it's 20 times 10. It's 20 tens, and 20 tens is 200, okay? Also think about how many zeros do I have here. This one is going to be one that's going to trick a lot of you guys up if you see something like this. Anytime that any number that I multiply by ends in that 0, you've got to remember you cannot count it in that 0 as we are adding these zeros. And we're going to see more down the line why we cannot do that, okay? So here I've got 40 times 50. So I'm going to separate this out and say 4 times 10 times 5 times 10. I need to write a little bit smaller for you guys, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and move all of these around, and I'm going to say 4 times 5 times 10 times 10, okay? So 4 times 5 is 20. Already know that. 10 times 10 is going to be 100. So I've got 20 times 100, okay? Now, you could say, okay, well, I can count up how many zeros I have. I'm going to have 3, okay? You could do that, but you've got to remember that you've got 20, and you're multiplying it by 100. I've got 2,000, because remember, you've got 20 hundreds. So here's my place value chart again. I have 20 hundreds, so I've got 20 hundreds, and then I need to add those zeros to fill in up into the decimal, and that is how I have 2,000, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and put that squiggly mark there. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to separate this out. So I'm going to do 4 times 10. I was getting ahead of myself. 4 times 10. And I'm going to multiply it by 5 times 100 because I have 500. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move these all around, and I'm going to say 4 times 5, and then I'm going to do 10 times 100. 10 times 100. Okay. I know 4 times 5 is 20. 10 times 10 is going to give me 1,000. So if you think about it, listen, guys, you have 20,000. I have 20,000 because 20 times 1,000 is 20,000. Okay. Same thing here. I'm going to separate this out. Now I've got 4 times 100 times 5 times 1,000. Okay. So I'm going to separate this out again, 4 times 5, and I'm going to multiply this by 100 times 1,000. Well, 100 times 1,000 is going to give me 100,000. Okay. If you think about it here, I'm doing that 1 times 1 is 1, and then I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. 100,000, 100,000. So now I'm going to multiply this out. I have 20 times 100,000. I've got 20 100,000s. Now this one might be a little bit confusing, and this is where I can see some of you guys dropping off these zeros. So I have 20 100,000s. So here is my 100,000s. I have 20 100,000s. My answer to that problem is 2 million. Okay, so this is where you might need to just really be careful, especially when you have any of these numbers like this that end in that 0, that could really throw you off. And if you're really listening right now, when we get to number 4 on that next page, you're going to be able to pick that out. So now we're going to go ahead and do letter D. Letter D starts off nice. 718 times 2. I'm going to go ahead and multiply this out. 8 times 2 is 16. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. 7 times 2 is 14. So this answer is 1,436. Don't get scared when we're coming around and doing some of these problems. As long as you guys are kind of understanding where we're getting some of these answers, I think that it will really, really, really help you out, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of like separate these out. So I'm pulling out those tens or those hundreds or those thousands. So I'm going to do 718 and I'm multiplying it by 10 because it is a 10. Oop, I shouldn't write out that word 10. I should just write the number 10. And I'm going to multiply this times 2 times 10 because 20 is 2 times 10 or 2 tens. Okay, so now I can go ahead and group these the way that I would like to, where I already know the answer over here. Then this one is going to be 10 times 10, okay? All I'm doing, guys, remember, is I'm just moving those numbers right here, and then I'm moving any of my powers of 10, 100, 1,000, 100,000, 10,000, did those out of order, million, anything like that, that's where it's going to go in that second one. I already know that this answer is 1,436. I'm going to multiply it by 100 because 10 times 10 is 100. And again, guys, when I come over here, I could just go ahead and put it on my place value. I know that it's 1,436 hundreds. So I need to have that 6 on, I want to make sure that I don't lose those numbers, on that hundreds because that's where that place value is. And then, of course, I've got to add in those zeros. Adding in 2 zeros. So this answer is 143,600. Guys, look how many zeros I added. How many zeros did I have here? So it's 143,600. Okay. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I've got 7,180 times 200. So same thing as over here. It's 718 times 10 because that's what that value is right there, times, and I'm going to do 2 times 100 now. And the reason is because I have 2 hundreds. So I'm going to go ahead and move all of these around. Okay, I already know this answer is 1,436. And if I multiply 10 times 100, what is 10 times 100? Well, that's 1,000. Okay, and 1,436 thousands, if I were to take this on my place value chart, I want to make sure that it ends in that thousands column. I have 1,436 thousands, and then I'm going to add those zeros in here. I have 1,436 thousands. And guys, take a look. How many zeros did I have there? 3 of them. How many zeros are right here? 3. So I've got 1,436,000. Okay, ooh, this is a bigger, this one's going to be what I would call a humdinger of a problem right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to separate this out. I have 718 times, and I'm going to look here. If I were to separate that out, that's going to tell me I have 100. And I'm going to multiply it by 2 thousands. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move these all around so that I have my powers of 10 in one place. Okay, 718 times 2 is going to give me that number I already know, 1,436. I'm going to multiply that by, let's see here, 100 times 1,000 is going to give me 100,000. And if I were to multiply this, and guys, if I were to put this on my place value chart, it will be way out of there. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got to add 5 zeros onto here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now the rule is that I bunch all those zeros by threes to put in my commas. This answer is 143,600,000.